said that at the beginning, which you can always use to judge me with also. And I said, if you have people in front of you, what do you want to teach them? What do you want to tell them? This is very important. It's an important question to me because this is something that's happening a lot in the Ummah. And that's why sometimes, even maybe people don't want to attend lectures or talks or things like that because they have this, we're going to hear the same thing time and time again and nothing will change. Now remember this, religion is all about transformation, okay? And what I'm doing here is not just giving you information, it's about transformation. So you take the information to be transformed. And this is what we're going to dwell on in this second session, this process. So to answer that question, I said, when I asked a couple of these people, so what do you tell them if they're doing everything that they're doing? Now, normally you'll find three things that is normally what you're told all of the times. The first one is you might find you're being told things that in context, because there's nothing irrelevant in our deen, but in context it can be just irrelevant. Meaning, if I start telling you about zina, and none of you is committing zina for the next 1 hour, then I'm just wasting your time. So if somebody stands there and is telling Muslims about drinking alcohol or taking drugs or backbiting, and the audience in front of them are not doing these things. And this is really something we see a lot in our mimbars, right? On our mimbars in the masjid. People are being told the same things that they're not the ones committing in the first place, if that are sins. And that's why they just can't wait for the khutbah to be done and go, right? So that's one of the, you'll find a lot of the times you're just being told things, the etiquette for Friday, and you're just being told the etiquette for Friday. But we're there because of that. You're being told about what alcohol is doing, and it's not you guys drinking in there. Let's get the people who are drinking and tell them. Or what zina is doing. So that's number one. You'll find that happening a lot, and that needs to change. But how can we change it is how we're going to look at that. Number two, you might find a lot of the times, again, because there's nothing more to tell you, you'll be told a lot of things that keep sowing fitna in our ummah. Really. Whoever's standing up there will either attack this group or that group, these sisters, these people. This is, I was just telling them, like over 100 years now, we keep going around the same issues. We're being put to sleep, really. Maulid comes, we start adding about Maulid. Christmas comes, we start adding about Christmas and da-da-da-da. When Valentine's Day comes, we start adding about that. That's what we're doing. And then there's Sufi, there's Shia, there's Sunni, there's Salafi, there's this, there's that. So that's what's happening. A lot of these darsas, that's what's happening, and the lectures. And people need to wake up and realize, hold on, 50 years ago, I once told somebody comes, you've been there like you're 60 years old, and you're told this is the son of so-and-so, and you're listening to him, and well, 50 years ago, your father said the same thing. He was a sheikh. Why? Because you're the products of the same places. Just that's what you are, right? And I'll tell you why that's happening. Right? And then the third one, so the first one, you're told things that in context that could be relevant for you. The second one, we are always circulating the fitness time and time again. And I don't know, they should be ashamed. Really. You see one man with tasbih, the khutbah becomes tasbih. You already just saw one man. We cannot, there will never be absolutely right or wrong. You might think your only way is right, but it could be wrong. So these are not the issues that are potential, crucial for us. The third one is nostalgia. Really, it's nostalgia. We just keep going back to the past like there's nothing we can do about the present. And that's why we think there are no solutions in our deen. Right? So we can go to the people of the past who you might just bring them now, they'll say, no, we don't have solutions for you. This, we don't understand your world. This is your world now. You need to find your solutions in there. Like you bring a sheikh from one of the countries outside of here, whether it's the Asian continent or the African, who has no idea how the life of the Western world is. And what do you expect him to guide you with? You understand? What is he going to tell you about your life? And then unfortunately, even they don't read. You understand? A lot of these people are not reading. They don't understand the political war, the economic war. They don't understand what's going on, right? How many Muslims are aware of the environmental damage? How many of you know just how the earth is so threatened? Do you even know what will happen by 2030 or 2050? Are they reading these things? And then when we know, do we think we have solutions? So there's all this, we go back to nostalgia. Right? Now, why is all this happening? For me, that's the answer. The answer to this is very simple. I can only tell you as far as my experience. Right? So most of these people, that's their level of experiencing deen. What else can they see beyond that? And this is what we're doing in this topic, in this lecture. We're talking about experience. If I don't have a high experience, I get to a level and that's it now. We are all the same level. So who's going to change things? And then they think that's all. So let's regurgitate. Let's go back to Maulid, to Shia, to Sunni, to this, to that. And then there's always a new breed which is always getting caught up, it's the system. The system knows how to produce same minds. Don't think the school hasn't affected the way you're practicing your deen. The system is producing the same minds. And you go with that same mind to the deen. What do you think? If you went through schooling, you're going to be much better in deen. If you don't put in the effort, you have to put in the effort. So for me, this is a message that whoever watches this or those who are listening, point it out. Tell these people who are giving us lectures and talks and all that, maybe there's something more. I said, Albert Einstein said, you can never solve a problem at the same level of consciousness that created the problem. And that's not a problem, You have to go to someone who has gone to a higher level of consciousness. Now, is there a reality to that? We are going to go through that, inshallah. We're going to understand this process. Now, just to spice it up a little bit, I'm going to read something. It may take 5, 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I wish I had, taken photocopies which you could all look at. But again, what I'm reading is just to show you that maybe we haven't grasped what religion is coming to tell us. Right? So I'm reading from, non-Muslim, but scientific work. And it's to do with the heart, which we're going to discuss. Right? So bear with me as I read. So, knowledge of the heart, as discussed here, concerns a radiating force or electromagnetic field arising from or through our heart. Offering new perspective, this heart field is often called heart energy, as though it was the same nature or makeup as gasoline, nuclear power, or the likes. Right? So, this heart field emerging out of our hearts and surrounding our body is a spiraling form called a torus. Okay? A torus. So it's about this torus, the heart flow creates is a stable formation that can arise through, from, or in a wide variety of non-solid materials. And in the heart's case, involving electromagnetic properties. The water swirling down in a whirlpool or a lavatory drain creates forms similar to a torus, and the circular rush of blood into the chambers of the heart creates a vortex similar to a torus form. So also does the pulse of blood spiraling through the major blood vessels. These vessels are reportedly grooved. Now, electrocardiograms have charted the general nature of this heart field for years. In the early 1990s, there's an organization known as the HeartMath Institute. Please buy their book. It's an amazing book to read. It's called the HeartMath. The HeartMath, it's one word, heart and math as in mathematics. The HeartMath Institute began collecting research on the subject, heart, as well as initiating research of their own. HeartMath's work eventually attracted neuroscientists and cardiologists from a wide area and the field of neurocardiology. Such electromagnetic configuration as this torus from the heart surrounds and embraces our body. Okay? And electromagnetic images of this have been revealing. You can see that there. Right. So we have an energy field that is outside of us that comes from the heart inside of us. Okay? Now, of particular interest, these individual formations from our heart are essentially the same makeup as our planetary torus forms arising from the Earth's core. They are the same as that which is arising from the Earth's core. This is connection. Okay? These planetary flows arc out and back at the magnetic poles, creating the ionosphere embracing the body of Earth and extending far beyond. And here in this similitude between heart and earth, another aspect of our heart story appears. As Earth's magnetic fields stream out into space, so the heart's electromagnetic field streams out beyond our body, both for indeterminate distances. What is streaming from our heart is going so far out that they actually said the reason they don't know how far is because they don't have the equipment necessary to measure. Okay? Further, these magnetic waves of heart and earth fuse, they merge in varying ways depending on the coherence of our heart's field. And herein our story takes on deeper implications. Coherence in this case means regularity or orderliness of those wave frequencies. Given that coherent regularity, heart's field frequencies can and automatically will mesh or fuse with correspondingly regular frequencies such as those surrounding the earth, or those of other people in a similar state of coherence. This is so deep, right? Further, as the magnetic fields forming about the earth radiate outward in ever-expanding waveforms, the same effect radiates out of and from the sun, which constantly produces untold myriads, torrents, and oceans of uniquely coherent torus forms covering the sun's surface. At the same time, even more massive radiations from the sun extend outward in great streams of plasma, which move into and embrace the entire solar system. Coherent heart fields within us, individuals, merge into those of the Earth's radiating fields, which in turn merge with those of the sun. Thus, we are incorporated into and reciprocally interact directly and indirectly with this whole solar system. To the extent our heart fields are coherent. What does that mean? Right? I will stop at that because I can read further. Did we grasp what he just said? That there is a connection between our hearts and the earth and the universe and the sun. We are connected through the heart with all this. Right? And when we have coherence in our heart, then the earth we are in will have coherence. When our hearts are sound, then the earth and the universe we are in will also be sound. This is scientifically proven. SubhanAllah. Scientifically proven. Now we are told that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. And we are told that the universe is contained in us. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu is saying, don't consider yourself a minute thing. The whole universe is contained within you. And then Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah doesn't change what is with a kaum until they change what is in their nafs. When we are changing here, we are changing the world outside of us. So I'm going to connect this with what we're going to do in this second session. We are now going to move into that inner life, understand this power of the heart. And I want to give just another beautiful example of this power of the heart and what it can do. So that, it's kind of just whetting the appetite so that we know what we're really missing out on and what we have. We're just the people who don't know what we have. Really, we have no idea what we have. That's why we're looking outside. We're looking at the other. We want what the other has. They have anxiety and restlessness. Unfortunately, we're in the same state. We're not supposed to be in that state. I've narrated this story once before for those who have been read. There is a Sheikh Kabir Helminski. He's written quite a number of books. And he talks about his Sheikh. The name of his Sheikh is Sheikh Suleiman Dede, who's passed away, rahimullah. And Sheikh Suleiman Dede was a Sheikh in Turkey, in one of the towns in Turkey, and he had never left Turkey all his life. So Sheikh Kabir Helminski, they were young people at that time from America. They went to Turkey, they met the Sheikh, they took Islam from him, they learned the religion from him, and then they had to go back to America. So when they went back to America, they decided as a group of students, why don't we bring the Sheikh to visit us? So they raised money and sent the ticket for Sheikh Suleiman Dede, rahimahullah, to go and visit them. Sheikh Suleiman Dede had never left the place where he was born. Right? So you can imagine this man is about to travel. And he was going to Los Angeles airport. So he lands at the LA airport and he's on his way to the custom and checkout and all that. And he's walking, and they will be waiting for him on the other side, according to what Sheikh Kabir was narrating. As he's walking this way, people who are passing him in the other direction turn around and start following him. This is a man who had never left the country and the town he was in. And as they kept following him, the number became so big that the airport authorities gave him a room like this one and said, just sit there, let them come to you. Have you just thought about that? A stranger walking into a place for the first time and everyone turning and following him. How is that possible? What is it that attracts us toward people? It's their beauty, isn't it? It's the states of their heart. This is heart coherence. This is how the heart entrains, how it pulls people. And people were just attracted towards him because of that resonance, the beauty that was coming out of him. They can measure this up to indeterminate distances. Well, we are not pulling people towards us, are we? We need to work at that. Really. The potential is in us. This is the heart that we don't even know about, and which Rasul has spoken so much about. We just don't have an idea what we have in us. And we need to learn these things. So it's an example of contemporary times. He died just in the last century. Sheikh Suleiman Dede. You can Google him up. You can read. You can call up Sheikh Kabir El-Minsky. He's written a number of books. He can give you the story, but it is one of his books. So amazing. This is what we are not aware of, what we have. Yet we see glimpses of that. We are attracted towards people. Sometimes we are repelled by people, right? And we think, I don't feel comfortable around this person. It's the energy field of this person. And the people who we are attracted towards, and we do that. And we humble ourselves in front of them, and we go and serve them. So that's just to spice you up with what we have. Now, can we understand this? Can we understand this? What is this exactly? Which is what I'm going to try to teach now, inshallah. So, I'll begin by saying that, as far as I know, maybe I could be wrong, but everything that has life will have three things that will always accompany it. Three things. Everything that has life, these three things will be with it. And the first one is, it has to grow. Everything that comes into, that has a life, begins, there is what we see, a growing. It has to grow. Right? Whether we look at animals, they didn't start as, what we see out there, they all started as little things, kittens, puppies, and all that. Whether we are looking at the trees out there, at the plants out there, they didn't start right away that way. They started off maybe as seeds. And the same thing with us human beings. We didn't start out what we are now. We had to grow, right? But here we're talking of physical growth, which is quite obvious for everyone who can see. So everything that comes into life must have a physical growth. But is it just a physical growth that is expected of everything that has life? Right? Is that what Allah intended, for us just to grow physically? And yet, sometimes in our conversation, we tell people who are adults, why don't you grow up? Where do we expect them to go after that? Right? So we are saying there's something wrong. There's something which hasn't grown. Right? So we have to grow. There is a growth. And it's definitely not just a physical growth. And if it was only a physical growth, there are human beings who come into the world with disabilities. So did Allah just intend for us a physical growth, then He would have oppressed them. And Allah doesn't oppress. Yet, when we look at the things which are growing out there, do we just see a physical growth? We have to ask ourselves that. Now let's come to the Quran. Whenever Allah talks about human beings, most of the time He talks about khalaqakum, how He created us, how ansha'akum, and all that. Is there any verse where Allah uses the word growth for human beings? Now, as far as I know in the Quran, I found two verses where Allah uses the same word growth for vegetation that He also uses for human beings. And one of them is in Surah Nuh. Wallahu ambatakum min al-ardi nabata. You know, Allah made you to grow out of the earth just like the vegetation. And Allah is always saying, look at my signs. Learn from my signs. So when we plant a seed in the earth, expecting it to grow, do you expect it to grow into a big seed? It's growing into something else, isn't it? It's not just growing into a seed. Now if you look at, let's say, domesticated animals, a goat, when it starts off, it's just a little thing. But does it just remain that little thing? It grows into something else. Destination. What is it supposed to grow into? Right? Its destination. It's growing into something. Now when we look at the tree, once it's growing into what its destination is, what can we observe about it? What can we observe about a tree now? It's out there.
It's reaching towards the samawat, towards the heavens.
What else? Destination is that which was intended to bring about, right? It's transforming into that which was intended. So like with the tree, we're deriving benefits now from it. Right? So it was put there for a purpose, not just to grow. It has a role when it does what? When it arrives at its destination, which is what we call its perfection. Its destination is its perfection. And the same thing with animals. You know, the little goat, we can't get milk or meat out of it. Nobody goes around slaughtering the little ones, right? You wait for it to get a little bit bigger. Then you get more benefit out of it. So what do? You nourish it. You nurture it. Then I can get the maximum benefit out of it. And you can see also with the predator animals. Right? If you take a lamb out of its environment when it's growing as a little calf, you can just turn it into something else. But that's not what it was intended for. And you can see even people who keep these calves which become lambs and all that, you who didn't grow up with them, you're at risk. Because they're still animals of prey. That's their nature, that's their fitra now. This is their fitra manifesting itself. That which we don't see. Right? Because you know, and it's not embarrassed killing even the youngest of the antelopes. You know, people say that's dhulma, why didn't you pick on the big one? It's not in his fitra. His fitra is meat, small or big. Right? But that's what it was intended for. Within what? The ecosystem. That's what it's supposed to be. So this is the second thing, that everything that is growing has to grow into something, which is its destination. Now let's come back to the human beings. So Allah says, Wallahu ambatakum min al-ardi nabata. And why is he using this, the metaphor of the vegetation? Because look at it, look how it's growing. It's not just growing. It was a seed, now it's giving you fruits. It's giving you crops. It's giving you all this. Then even your growth is supposed to be bringing something good. You're not just growing up physically, and most of us at the age of 21, according to biology, we don't have physical growth, isn't it? So now we're either just getting fat or thin, and then sick, right? And those are issues also, right? And then we're aging and we're looking for all new inventions from L'Oreal or whatever to get rid of the wrinkles and all that, right? People don't want even to accept that, right? So we're also looking for the Holy Grail to make us young. But then Allah didn't intend us just to have a physical growth. So what does He intend us to grow into? And we're going to look into that, right? Before we look into that which we're going to grow into, What's the third thing that will accompany everything that has life?
Death.
Our destination is not death, like I said. Death is inevitable. We were not brought into the world to die. If you follow what I'm trying to tell you. We were not brought into the world to die. Is that true?
Yes.
We didn't come to die. We came to live. We live for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. He doesn't say إِلَّا لِيَمُوتُ, so that you die. You will die. Don't worry about that. Right? And you can die young or old. So really, what about if I live too long? Is it that I came here to die? I didn't come here to die. So I am growing, I have a destination, something that I'm growing into. And the third thing that will accompany everything that has life is what we call obstacles. You will have obstacles in your growth. You understand that? And it's the same thing. The trees, we can have drought, we can have famine, we can have floods, right? The plants, the seeds we put on the earth, right? Sometimes as the maize is coming out and then boom, what happens? There's no rain. We lose all of it. So there's always obstacles, right? If we look at animals, same thing. Either diseases or predators, right? Or human beings have to slaughter you.
Even trees have diseases.
Even trees have diseases. So there's always obstacles to your perfection. So what's the obstacle for human beings?
Nafs.
We will remove death. Yeah? Right? Our first obstacle is who? Shaitan. Shaitan is our first obstacle to our growth. Why? Because he knows you're all going to be Suleiman Dede. And that's bad for me. If you all become like the Sheikh, I'm in trouble. Right? Why does he do that? Because he knows us. He knows us before we know ourselves. And I'm going to come into that. Right? So he's our first obstacle, but he's only penultimate. He's not the ultimate obstacle. He's not the ultimate obstacle. Right? So let's come back now to, so we have growth, obstacle, destination. Now I remember once when I did this talk, I didn't know this. One of the brothers told me, if you take the three words, growth, G, obstacle, O, D, destination, you get God. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Now that's your final destination. No matter how much we grow, we're still going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I wasn't even aware that when I came to that, he just told me, oh subhanAllah, I wasn't aware of that. Right? So, وَاللَّهُ أَنْبَتَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ نَبَاتًا. Right? So we are supposed to grow like, so what kind of growth do we expect from human beings? Now let's go to the second verse which uses the word nabata. Right? The mother of Maryam alayhi salam. So she makes a dua and tells Allah, right? إني سميتها مريم وإن أعيذها بك وذريتها من الشيطان الرجيم فتقبل ربها بقبول حسن وأنبتها نباتا حسنا وأنبتها نباتا حسنا, and then he made her to grow into this beautiful, excellent growth. Now this is a word we're going to use a lot now. Hasana, ihsan, right? This is what we're going to discuss a lot now. So, وَأَنْبَتَهَا نَبَاتًا حَسَنًا, and made her to grow into this beautiful growth, this nabatan hasana. Is it a beauty of form?
No.
It can't be a beauty of form. Because, as much as Maryam alayhi salam was beautiful, there are many women who are beautiful, even during her time. So Allah was not really indicating her outer form. The form outwardly, that she grew into this beautiful woman. She was beautiful. And women have always been beautiful, mashallah, right? So what is Allah implying? What's this nabatan hasana? So we now, as human beings, we want to grow into this nabatan hasana. This is our growth. This is our destination. To grow into a beautiful thing.
Character.
Huh?
Character.
Character, we'll come into that, right? But we're saying, now we know we're supposed to be nabatan hasana, we're supposed to grow. Do we agree that we're supposed to grow?
Yes.
Because that's what we have to understand first. Are we intended to grow? Does it matter if we grow or don't grow?
Yes.
And it's important to realize this. We are here to grow because everything is growing. And in its growth, we see a transformation from what it started into what it turned out into be. So we have to also understand we human beings here are also supposed to be growing into something, and this is into that nabatan hasana, which is our perfection. We have to get to that. And you can look at the reverse of that is when you're not growing, something which doesn't grow, what happens to it? It starts decaying, isn't it? And whatever is decaying will soon it withers, it's weak, and boom, it can be crushed easily. The stress on it will just destroy it. So when you're not growing, every stress that comes towards you brings you down. Because you haven't grown. And if you thought growing was having muscles, look at these weightlifters and bodybuilders, right? They kill themselves with all their muscles. Thought you could take everything, isn't it? What happened? Right? So really, it's not about the body being big. There is a transformation that is expected. There is an nabatan hasana. Now if we agree we're supposed to be an nabatan hasana, then who is going to be our model for that? Who is going to show us what we are supposed to grow into? Not Maryam alayhi salam. Rasulullah. Now what does Allah say? لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Uswatun hasana. So you want to grow into this nabatan hasana? There is our role model, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, interestingly, this word uswatun hasana, as far as I know in the Quran, guess which other prophet it's been used for? Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. Really? Call the Quran. لَكَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَمَنْ مَعَهُ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. With Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam and those with him is an uswatun hasana. And Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam is the beginning of what? The Deen Hanifa, the Deen of our Fitra. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is what? The end of it. And we're doing what in our prayer? Salli ala who and who? Both of them. They're governing what we're growing into. So now Rasulullah ﷺ is the uswatun hasana that we're supposed to turn into. Right? And then look at what Allah says, what are you here for? الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. We're coming back to the ihsan. So you're going to grow through ihsan. Now in a hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ الْإِحْسَانَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ الْإِحْسَانَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Allah prescribed ihsan in everything. Which means what? Even in your growth. even in your growth, it's ihsan. Ihsan is that which is excellent, that which is beautiful. That's what he expects in you, to be this end product that is beautiful, that is the perfection of the creation. That's what he wants you to be. And then when we accept this, so we're going to learn what? If I embrace this concept of ihsan, now is hal jazaa'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan. Don't we recompense ihsan except with more ihsan? So we are here for what? For ihsan. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. To test you which one of you will choose this path of ihsan. Now we look at the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam when he comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he starts with Mal Islam, Mal Iman, and finally Mal Ihsan. What is ihsan? You're going to go through these three stages. You will begin as a Muslim, and then you'll move to Mu'min, Iman, and then you'll move to Ihsan, Muhsin. This is your journey. This is what you are here to experience. Now you have to identify that which is growing and how it is growing. If we agree that we are here to grow, and we have a destination, that which we are growing into, then we have to find what is this thing that is growing. And we know it's not the physical body. Right? It's not the physical body growing. And can we see the signs of this growth? Bear this in mind. Can we identify it? Right? Can we see its signs? Can we point to how it is growing? This is what we need to learn. This is the metaphysical issue of the fitra now. Okay, that's the metaphysical issue of the fitra. Now, who gives us a clue into what is supposed to grow? Our enemy, Shaitan. Right? Shaitan gives us a clue now. The obstacle, he's telling us the clue. He says on Yawmul Qiyamah, Allah promised you, and He kept His promise. وَأَنَا وَعَدْتُكُمْ, and I promised you, and I broke my promise. And I did not have any authority over you. إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ, except I called you, فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي, and you answered me. Do you know where Shaitan is calling you from? Do you have any idea? Does anybody hear him calling? But this one he said on Yawmul Qiyamah, I called you and you answered. And then he says, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Don't blame me, blame your souls. Blame the soul, the nafsi. And this is what we have to learn, that we have a soul. We have a heart and a soul and a spirit. And this is the unseen of the fitra. And it exists. Have you noticed how the seed starts its growth in darkness and then comes into light? So this is exactly what is happening. And the nafs is a reality, because when Allah created us, what does He say? وَالنَّفْسِ وَمَا سَوَاهَا. The soul and the one who fashioned it. There is a soul. And the soul is not the body. Your soul is not the body. But it exists. And Allah talks about it time and time again. And it has a journey. And we have to understand this journey. What happens? Right? Why is that important? Pay attention to this statement. Everything in your life is a means. Everything in your life is just a means. What is it a means to? It's a means to what?
Allah.
Everything in your life is just a means. Your children, they're a means to something. Your wife, your job, your health, all of them are a means. And they are a means to what state will they put you in. Because that's what they're doing. Right now, my words here are a means to what state are you in. True or false? I could just be putting you to sleep, boring you. But it's having an effect. Or I could be exciting you. So the words are a means. Just like you go home, your wife, your children, they're a means. Whatever is going to happen, it's going to affect what? Your inner state. Because life is taking place in here. We've just had food. Is the ham celebrating? And if I'm hungry, is the ham complaining we didn't touch food? It's all in here. And it puts me into a certain state. If I have money or don't have money, I go into a certain state. If I have a job or don't have a job, I go into a certain state. Right? If I'm healthy or sick, it puts me in certain states. To understand what state do I want to be in? Can I know the states that I'm in? And this is what we're talking about, experiential. Experiential. Because those states will be reflected in my life outwardly. And we can see sometimes, you see somebody walking and say, you look sad. The face is saying that. Right? You look down. The body is telling you that. Why? Because it's been a fruit, it's growing. And this is the place of religion in our lives. Religion, because the means are inevitable. You cannot avoid the means. Do you realize that? You cannot avoid the means. The means are also the tools for your testing. Right? Because your wife, your brother, your sister, they also a test. And Allah is going to test you. Your money or lack of money. Right? So the means are inevitable. You're not going to avoid them. Now what you have to work on is, how do I deal with these means inside of me? And this is where we're all having problems. As human beings and as the Muslim Ummah. All the conflicts we see in the world are our confront goes and kills people? No. It's its own conflicted state. Because a peaceful human being will not do that. And it's the same thing with us Muslims, what we're doing to each other. It's this nature which we have not understood. So we don't know what's going on. So we don't know how to deal with our anger, with our frustrations, with our failures. And what do we do now? We throw it out there, and the heart. Okay, so we have to know this. Now let's go into it. So we have identified we are going to grow. We are going to go, this is our destination. We have a perfection to arrive at. Now we are looking at the things that grow. Our souls, if you go to the Quran, we have a soul and we have a heart. And both are mentioned. Nafs is mentioned a lot, and the qalb. And here we're not talking of the physical heart, we're talking of the spiritual heart, the fitra, inside of us. And then we have the ruh, which is the spirit. Each one of these has been mentioned in the Quran. So let's look at the nafsi, for example. Allah says in one verse, when Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam talks about the nafsi, and he says, Inna nafsa la'amarata bisu. Indeed, the nafsi commands to evil. Inna nafsa la'amarata bisu. And then later on, Allah says, La uqsimu biyawm al-qiyamah wa la uqsimu bi nafsi al-lawama. I swear by Yawm al-Qiyamah, the nafsi al-lawama, the blameworthy nafsi. So is it a different nafsi, moving from, earlier on we are told it commands towards evil, now we are told it's a blameworthy nafsi, And then we have Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna, oh you tranquil. Now, until you get to this state, try and get to this state of tranquility. And you can see Allah here is calling the nafsi by Ya, oh you, fulani. While earlier on it's just inna nafsa la'amarata bisu. Have we ever thought about this? What does it mean? The soul commands towards evil, the soul is blameworthy, and the English word for all this is just the soul, right? The Arabic is nafs. We're going to use the soul. And then it has tranquility. And then if you come to the heart, again you find different terminologies for the heart. There are different adjectives used for the heart, right? So you can have qasiya qulubun, the heart is hard. The heart has become hard or blind. The soul is going into this, into that. This is exactly what is going on inside of us. This is the human nature. And this is what everything that is a means is doing to us. So this is the experiential of life and deen. Right? Because like I said, your issues in life, they're affecting you. Right? And your issues in deen, they're affecting you. Now for most of us, this affectation will be what? For most of us. Whatever is coming as a means, sometimes it makes us happy, sometimes it makes us sad, angry and all that, right? But it's not what we're supposed to be. No, we're supposed to be restful people. We're supposed to be in a peaceful state, such that whenever the means come, they don't change us anymore. You understand that? When the means come, the testing, so you come to me with your anger, I don't get angry. I cool down your anger, which is not what we are doing, most of us, right? You want to fight me, I'm going to fight you. Right? Do you realize you're diseased? But when we say we Muslims are diseased, we think no, the disease of the heart is a problem of the unbeliever. Look at actions. Actions. What does Allah expect from us when it comes to actions? Right? In one verse he says, هل ولا تستوي الحسنات ولا سيئة. Good and bad are not the same. Right? A good action and a bad, they're not the same. Idfa billati hiya ahsan. Idfa. Remove the bad action with that which is good. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanding us. Is that what we're doing out there? That's not what we're doing. What does that tell us? We haven't understood what? Our religion. We haven't. Are we worshipping Allah in what we want and not what He wants? All this violence in the Muslim lands, whether it's a Shia, whether it's a Sunni, why don't you begin by forgiving? Don't expect the other one. You start it. You let go and forgive. Right? Because it's become vengeance. They started it, we have to do it. They took ours, we have to take theirs. Right? And this is a people that Allah is saying, remove the evil with that which is good. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَوَاتٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. So that the one who between the two of you there's enmity becomes like somebody you love. So Allah will change their hearts. You do this. Don't worry. Just forgive. Show mercy. And then Allah will take care of the hearts. This is ihsan. And what is this? It's the jihad of the nafsi. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, we have come from a small battle to a bigger battle. And that has come from fighting. And the Sahabas they asked, Ya Rasulullah, I mean, is there a bigger battle than being out there in the battlefield? We said yes, the jihad of the nafsi. This is bigger. And you can see how difficult it is to forgive each other. Okay? So this is action. Let's look at speech. وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُ الَّتِي أَحْسَنُ. Tell my servants to speak that which is ahsan. Again, we're coming back to it, ihsan. This is what we're here for. So even in speech, speak that which is beautiful. And then in thoughts, have husnul dhanna, have good thoughts. This is the message of Islam. Now if we apply this, what happens? Hal jazaa'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan. So now we have the seed planted. Now we want it to grow. So what are we going to nourish it? Ihsan, 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 ihsan. And as it's growing, then we are going to witness this because it's manifested. So this is the journey of the soul, and I'll just quickly go over it from my understanding as in function, right? The soul, by default, when you come into the world, the soul, once you get to the edge of responsibility, mukallaf, now your sins are going to be written in your actions, right? So by default, the soul, amara bisu, might incline towards that which is evil. But then it's given guidance. And if it accepts this guidance, now it's beginning to transform. Okay? Now what happens if it doesn't accept guidance? It starts committing sins. Now once you start committing sins, what's happening to your heart? Now look at your heart, right? It's having what? Nukta sauda. There is a corruption going into your heart. And this corruption, we are told, a black dot appears around your heart. What happens if you persist in this? If the soul continues persisting in this action, now the heart, we are told, بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. But rana, now it becomes rusty. Right? Now that makes it a bit difficult to purify. We are coming to purification now, right? And what happens if you persist? Taba Allah. Now it's stamped on the heart. It's engraved. And the engraved one is more difficult to remove. And that's a problem now. And if you persist in this again, it will go to the worst state. What's the worst state? Khatam Allah ala qulubihim. The heart will be sealed. The heart will be sealed. Now what happens when the heart is sealed? You lose emotions. And that's what you have with serial killers. These people, what they're doing. They don't have any emotions. They kill and they want their story to be known. And that's a heart that is now, when Allah seals the heart, that's hellfire. Why? Because the heart is the arbitrator. A man came to Rasulullah ﷺ and he said, tell me about good and bad. And he said, bad is that which when you commit, your heart is wavering and you don't want people to find out. And good is that which when you commit, you feel good. And in that hadith when he said, there is a piece of flesh in the body, mudghah, right? If it is sound, the whole body is sound. If it's corrupt, the whole body is corrupt. This is the heart. So the heart knows. And it's always working with your soul to warn about this. But if it gets to that state, you're in trouble. Now what about if you realize you've committed a sin? Because the heart will tell you this is not right. The knowledge is already in the heart. Okay, it will tell you this is not right. And that's when you will want to do tawbah. And when you're doing the tawbah, the nafsi goes into what state? Lawama, it's blameworthy. It's not happy, it's blaming itself. That's the state it goes into. So there's this play going on with what you're doing, with your actions, with your speech. There's either purity or impurity going on. And then you have the ruh. The ruh is immutable. When you do an action, if it's a good action, what happens? Like when you've prayed. Have you noticed when you pray, you're feeling good? This is the jaza. Right? So the heart turns towards the spirit, and the spirit rewards you with that. And now you're feeling good. And this reward purifies the heart and the soul. Why? Because Allah said, we didn't impose this as a difficulty except what? Remember the verse? وَلَكِنْ يُرِيدُ لِيُطَهِّرَكُمْ. He wants to purify you. So whenever you're doing this ihsan, all this amalun salih, you're getting your purification going on. And if you're not, there's a corruption going on. And this corruption harms the heart. Now, if the heart is journeying towards in the right manner, what happens to it? If it's not going towards hatama, what direction is the heart supposed to go to? Qalbun salim. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالُ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Except the one who comes to Allah with a sound heart. That's our finality. The heart is supposed to arrive at this state of soundness. And the soul arrives at which state? Tranquility. Mutma'inna. This is what's going on. And it's all dictated by what we are doing in terms of actions and speech and our thoughts. There is a process going on. I want to just bring a small story here that to show this power of the heart. I saw once a program on TV a number of years back, and it was about young people and their addiction to pornography. And there was a young man, he didn't have any, not from a Muslim background, from natives over here, not religious background. That's important to realize, right? Because what happened was this young man, probably in his 20s, had become very addicted to pornography, and now he couldn't help himself in terms of his shahawat. And this kept going on, so he sought help. He wanted to be helped. So this journalist who was doing this investigation into how pornography is affecting young people, the man came into the young man came into the program, and the journalist wanted to, test for himself whether this is true. So they went out driving, and they came to a McDonald's, and there were young girls out there, and his shahwa just kicked in. He couldn't control himself. That's what happens to him now. So he went into the toilet and satisfied himself. Haram, right? Then he came out, having fulfilled his desire. When he came out, the journalist asked him this question: how do you feel now that you've done what you've done? And this young man said, I feel horrible and worthless. Horrible and worthless. Now think about this. Legally, he can do what he wants to do. The laws of the country don't stop him. Enjoy your desire, fulfill it, whichever way you want. Except from the prohibited by the laws of the country. So he went and did it. Now, after the ecstasy, what happens? He's feeling horrible and worthless. This is the power of the heart. The soul has succumbed to the weakness. Right? It's inclined, the amara, to be su. But then the heart, which is the arbitrator, and it's the one which controls the feeling. How are you feeling? What state are you in? It put him into that state where he realized he's feeling horrible and worthless. Doesn't this amaze you that this is the power of the heart? This is a reality. That even a non-Muslim who is partaking in his legal rights doesn't find joy in the end. And what does that tell you about guidance? Guidance is already in the heart. You cannot escape it. And that's why even non-Muslims or even unbelievers still want to do good. Why do you want to do good? And you don't realize is Allah, out of His love and mercy, does not deny you the benefit of good. The experience of what you've done that is good, He allows you to experience it. It doesn't remove it. So they think we don't need good. Now, in the Heart Math book, this is amazing information. They realized that the heart and the soul, the heart starts beating before it has any connection to the brain. Number one. I can read these things at some point. This is what they realized. that the heart is already beating before having any connection to the brain. Number one, which is really achieved because they thought the brain controls everything. But the heart has its own knowledge. And then secondly, they realized, this is what they found out, that the brain will send messages to the brain that the brain will obey. Who's the king? The heart. This is the heart. It's overruling the brain. So the soul, this young man, the mind is there, right? Let's do this. And because he doesn't have a check system, what's haram, what's halal, right? So he inclines towards it. But the king rejects it. We don't recognize that as amalun salih. That's haram. Whether you're a believer or not, I can't make you feel good. And I'm the one making you feel good. I don't recognize that. If you do that, I'm told to make you feel bad. Why am I making you feel bad? So that you regret and change. Now, do you see the amazing thing about the heart? He's so neutral. He's not judgmental. He's not judgmental. Ajib, isn't it? He's just telling you that wasn't right. And that's what the heart is doing. Now, if our hearts were in that state, have you realized how judgmental we are? Something is wrong, isn't it? We are corrupting the heart. We see these diseases in the Muslim Ummah. Because the heart gets corrupted by what you're doing. It's just being corrupted throughout, or it's being made sound. And when we have sound hearts, what will happen outside of us? The world will be sound. And like we read, the whole earth will be sound. The universe will be sound. So we are the disease that is destroying the world. And we are looking outside when we should be looking inside. And this is what the religion is coming to teach us, to go inside. I think I'll 5-10 minutes, I will complete this session. Okay. So now what we have to look at is, so we understand this movement of the heart and the soul, right? But can we identify whether we are growing or not? Is it possible to know whether, according to this science, there's what we call expansion. Now, interestingly, our deen is called deenul. If it's not, then it's constriction. And there will be signs of that constriction. So if you're being expanded, how will you know this? The changes that are taking place, you will be able to identify them. And I will give a number of these transformations, these things that will keep occurring, right? And if you look at what I wrote about this, we cannot allow, we can go into the education system without it corrupting us. How we can live within the economic system without it corrupting us. How we can live in the political without it corrupting us. Because when you are having this expansion, you will know how to deal with these things. Okay? And this expansion, a number of things that you can identify when you're having your growth. Number one is you will have an increase in knowledge. Wallahi, you will have an increase in knowledge. Okay? You will understand more, both for whatever knowledge, dunyawiyah and the deen, because even the hadith says, whoever Allah wants good for them, yufaqihu fi din. He will give them an understanding of the deen. So you will have an expansion of knowledge. You will have an expansion of character. Your character will change. And people will say that. Right? He used to be angry. Nowadays he's okay. He doesn't get very angry like before. He's transforming. Right? He used to shout a lot. I know he's becoming gentle. Something is happening. Go and find out. Ask him. Or her. Right? So character changes. He's becoming more generous. You will notice these character changes. This is what Allah is doing to you. This is ihsan now. Their speech will change. Really. They used to talk rubbish, now they don't. Right? Used to go on and on about football, maybe now he only talks about 10, 15 minutes. Right? Really, I know a brother that I work with, if you start a conversation with him on football, you're in trouble. Really, he can go on for 1 hour, 2 hours. Right now, not really, you can talk about football, but then, if you're having this transformation, you just know how to balance. Right? So the speech changes, not only just that type of change, but the speech becomes more and more beautiful. You understand? It becomes more attractive. It's like you want to listen. There is a gentleness in it. This is a transformation that is occurring. And then wisdom. Key thing, wisdom. And we know what wisdom is. Now we have identified it. So what happens? As you're being transformed, you're given hikmah, wisdom. And wisdom, Allah says, وَمَنْ أُوتِيَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. You've been given abundant blessings. And we all need wisdom, really. Knowledge can go both ways. It can be good or bad. Many people have knowledge, they start wars. Right? Some of our own shuyukhs are dividing us because of their knowledge. But if they had wisdom, that would not happen. Because wisdom only brings what is good. And that's what we need. We need an expansion in wisdom. Then we can know how to deal with things. We can know how to talk to the non-Muslim. Have you noticed sometimes the people who represent us in the media are the lowest of us in terms of hikmah, wisdom, right? Those who have wisdom, they don't go to them, or they give them a minute. And then they bring those who just misrepresent us. Why? They don't have wisdom. So you're going to have this, an expansion in wisdom. And then you're going to have an expansion in your ibadah. Right? You're going to have an expansion in your ibadah. You will start moving up the ladder in your worshipping. You will notice you want to do your sunnah, you want to do your qiyamul layl, you have your adhkars, you have all these things which you keep wanting to fulfill, the sunnah fasting and all that. They start becoming a part and parcel of your life. Okay, this is expansion, and we need that. And then you'll have expansion in your endurance. That is your stamina, your ability, what you can do for long periods without being tired. It will put you, and really, we know this from people who have sat with some of our great shuyukhs who they tell you he doesn't get tired, doesn't sleep. True or false? Right? We have people who tell you he doesn't sleep. It's only an hour. Somebody was telling me about the sheikh, right? The sheikh of Sheikh so and so who used to fall asleep for 10 minutes. So that was all. And you just wake up so fresh. Right? Like, I don't need it. And it's true because even Allah says in the Quran, some of my servants, how little they sleep of the night. Don't worry about sleep. Stop believing in 8 hours, this 8-hour thing, right? I'm tired, I need to sleep 8 hours. Those are just tricks they play with all of us to put us in the same place. I can't function, I didn't sleep. It's not true. Who told you they have the absolute knowledge of all this? So your endurance changes, what you can do, your stamina. This is part of your transformation. This is part of your expansion. Okay? And then also, your presence, what your, the energy around you and inside of you will change. And this is what we're looking at, the heart. This is what the heart is capable of during this. The energy you are given is such a beautiful energy. And I tell you, I just don't have time to read all of these things for you. They have discovered that within the water molecules in our body, there is a type of energy that doesn't originate from this world. They know that. Empirically. Worldwide. It doesn't originate from this world. And today in quantum science, they tell you they don't have any doubt about the unseen realm. And they say it has a greater effect on the seen. This is empirical knowledge in quantum science. And Lote, who wrote a beautiful book called Infinite Potential, read this book. He's a quantum scientist who started out as a Christian, born in Christianity, like some of us are born in Islam, and then became an atheist, had enough of religion. And then his field of knowledge brought him back to a state of belief. And one of the things he said, he realized from quantum physics, quantum science, that the best way to live your life is by doing a lot of good. Now what does Allah say? لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Now you have physical evidence that, look, we Muslims are already on the right path. But we're not doing enough of it. Our experience of it is so poor. Right? If we want to change things, if we want to face what is out there, we need to grow. We need to have this expansion. So finally you come to realize that your energy changes, your presence changes. People will want to be in your company. People will spend hours in your company. Wallahi. They will be looking out for you. They will be seeking you out. Because what do? Believe it or not, you are healing them. They feel healed in your presence. Because this energy heals you. It's a healing energy. It's a healing energy. Okay? Now once you understand that it can be manifested, you can identify your growth. So what are you going to do now? What are you going to do? Well, I want to get to that place, because if I'm growing, if I start now and I start growing, and the result is Qalbun Salim and Nafsul Mutma'inna, why don't I just get it now? What am I waiting for? Let me find this peace and tranquility. So what am I going to do? I'm going to increase my ihsan. I'm going to increase it. ثُمَّ عَرَفْنَا الْكِتَابَ الَّذِينَ اصْطَفَيْنَا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا. Then we gave the book those we chose from our servants. مِنْهُمْ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. Some of them are oppressing themselves. وَمِنْهُمْ مُقْتَصِدٌ. Some of them are moderate. وَمِنْهُمْ سَابِقٌ بِالْخَيْرَاتِ. Some of them have gone forward. They're not waiting. They're doing more. They're kicking through the bush to find their own path to their tranquility and their mutma'inna. And this is a big message for the young people of today. You are going to face a world that is getting increasingly challenging. And those challenges, like I said, we may not be able to do a lot about the means. We may not be able to change the education system, the economic system, or the political system. But if we grow, we will be taught how to face this without being corrupted. And next, flourishing. Are we Muslims really flourishing? Do we identify what it means to flourish? Do you know what's flourishing? If I ask people, do you know your states? What state are you in? People are shocked. Right? I once was talking to a brother and I said, most people are restless. And then he looked at me and I looked at him and I said, you want me to tell you what restless is? He said, yeah, I don't understand what's a restless state. So I explained to him. When I finished, he said, that's me. I'm restless. Right? And it's the same way. People say they're bored. What's boredom? What's boredom? I'm bored. What's boredom? Because there's a reality to boredom. Boredom puts you in a certain way, isn't it? When you're bored. But you can't identify it properly. So I'm just bored. But it's doing something to you. And it's making you look, like unhappy or uninterested. Now, if you realize that it's manifesting in your body, what did we say? If it's manifesting in the body, where is its origin? It's coming from the soul and the heart. That means boredom is a state that your soul has gone into. It's gone into that state, and it's a very bad state. Because now nothing is exciting, right? Except what is corrupting you. Really. And I once was giving this example. I said, if I, cook some beautiful food, my wife may say, amazing biryani, and I invite people, and we're going to watch football for 3 hours. I don't know what the sisters will be watching. It's a brava thing, right? And that's what they. And then there's German football, and then there's Italian football, and there's Spanish football, right? Anybody who's from this area, maybe they're doing it in Pakistan. I don't know. I know from Africa they do that.
Cricket.
Turkey. I know Turkish people. Or cricket, right? And I've seen this one time. There's a Turkish masjid where I go to in Lyon, and they have a room where people watch TV. And wallahi, their teams were playing, two of the biggest teams. And it was time for prayer, and they didn't move. And the prayer is in the same place where they are. They didn't move. Right?
Only after the goal.
Yeah? So they do this, right? So they give them all these, okay, start playing. So I said, okay, I will invite you and we'll have food. They will come and they will watch it for 8 hours. And then I will say, okay, and tomorrow I'm inviting you again, fantastic food, but we're going to do dhikr or salawat for 2 hours. How many will turn up? How many will turn up? And if I say, for today, we'll do this if only you agree to come tomorrow, they will come for my biryani today. Because tomorrow is dhikr. The condition is getting difficult. What has happened? What has really happened? And the answer is very simple. The experiencer has been corrupted. It's the experiencer, right? So you're watching football and all that, there is a joy in it. Allah doesn't deny you. But in the end, it corrupts you. And now when I bring something of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not inclined towards it. Why? There's so much impurity that we can't get to the light. Your senses have been bogged down with that which is not beneficial. And now you're finding it difficult to move towards that which is not alien to you. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. This is not alien to you. Right? Allah says we didn't impose any of this as a difficulty. ما جعل لكم في الدين من حرج. And in that other verse, إلا يريد ليطهركم. He wants to purify you. ويتم نعمته عليكم. So this is not alien to you. If you experience it the way you're supposed to experience it, you will do so much of it that you will never cease doing it. Wallahi, that's what happens. You will mention Allah so much, like the hadith which says, someone will mention Allah so much until people will say he's a majnoon. That is up to 2,000 rakahs in a day. Used to do that, wallahi. Rabi al-Adawi used to do the same. Just sunnah. They could not stop themselves. Because these things are the sweetness of the heart and the soul. Now, if we're not experiencing them, the problem is with the experiencer. It's with the experiencer. I've just read about what the heart can do. There's a doctor who's a neurosurgeon, Cohen. His name is Cohen. He's a neurosurgeon. The heart is his business. And he discovered something about the heart that was really amazing. right? First of all, he found out that, and this will be shocking information, the heart doesn't pump the blood. It's the blood that pumps the heart. That's shocking, isn't it? He's a neurosurgeon, big time. You can ask him. He's not talking from just, that's his field. Right? This is one of the things he found out. And then while he was investigating the heart, because he is dealing with patients who have a lot of heart diseases, and you were told that it's a lot to do with cholesterol and all that, and he came to find out all that is lies. It's not that really causes the heart attack, right? But he wanted to investigate more about the heart, and he came across somebody who designed what the heart looks like. Right? For most of us, if you ask us to draw the heart, what diagram do we draw? Something like the hamsa of the Arabic letter, isn't it? We all think it's like a love-shaped thing. It's not. That's not how the heart looks like, right? So the guy that's how it looks like. And one of the things he found out is that the heart actually sits within the breast, like in a cube. That's how it's encircled, in a cube. The heart is in a cube. Rings a bell somewhere, right? And then he found out that the way the heart operates is like a vortex. Did we just read that in the other book? The vortex. Now the amazing thing about this vortex is the left ventricle is actually where the vortex comes from above. And then it goes through to the right ventricle, and there it goes below to come out. Okay, this is what he found out. So it's coming in through this side as a vortex and going out this side, right? Interesting that when we're doing the and then we're having this divine infusion coming in. And then we give it into the world through the right. Don't we give through the right? So this is something that they discovered. It's a vortex. But what is also most important, why a vortex? Right? Now the Sufis talk about what they call the alchemy. Right? The transformation of the heart. Or the transformation of lead into gold. How do you transform lead into gold? Now, if you want to do that scientifically, to transform lead into gold, if it's possible, right? And gold is the best superconductor. Gold is the best conductor, right? In conducting. What they realize is to do that, you have to have something like a vortex that spins so fast. Now, what's the problem with that? If you have anything that spins so fast, what's it going to do? It will heat up. And if it heats up, it's going to destroy the material. So they found that the vortex of the heart is the only one which can do that. It can transform that lead into gold. But not only that, they found out that within our blood, there's traces of gold. There's traces of gold dust in our blood. Right? Now, think of the reflexes. We are told, like, when you have a thought, you have electric impulse going on and chemical reactions. How fast do you think that has to happen for you to react? How is that possible? You must have something that is conducting faster than the speed of light. That's the vortex of the heart. That's empirical knowledge. Now, what did he say? The heart is connecting to what? The sun, the universe, the earth. Wallahi, we don't know what we have. Subhanallah. We haven't known what we have. If we knew what we have, we would be the people that everyone is looking at. Who are these beautiful, happy people? But look at us. I sometimes see people when they're going to the masjid and just how they look so down. Really, we observe this like we're going to be punished. Now, if Allah is al-Wadud and you're in love with Him, what do we say about the loving relationship? You're supposed to be ecstatic going in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So this is experience. We need to change our experience of deen. If we bear in mind what we have gone through today, we will understand we can have a different experience of religion. Religion is expected to transform us. That's what it came to do. And then we can be this Khalifa, we can be this Shuhada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can be these people of Ihsan, which is our destination. So be the Sabiqun bil Khairat, especially young people. You have time now, you are free. Your obligations are not that many. Do as lot as you can of Ihsan, of your prayers, of your worshipping, of your fasting. And I'm not going to go into fasting. I'll finish this session and then we'll have a break and Sufyan will come and do the final session. But I know there's a lot of power in fasting. There's a lot of power in fasting. If you go on that path, you will be amazed. Right? You will be amazed. Okay? So I don't think I need to do like a summation synopsis of what I've done. I think we've all gathered all this. Maybe we can have later on some question and answers. But I feel like I have done enough of bringing this understanding of the outward and the inward, right? Moving from knowledge to experience. And that's what religion is aimed to do. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much for your time and for putting up with me, inshallah. We're just going to have a quick break. We'll pass it during the break, and then we'll have Sasha coming to give us some words, inshallah.